All right, so continuing on where we left off yesterday, so we are designing this business process of our own. We are able to use these already. Now the task is where we kind of got some errors. Uh, Somebody overridden the business process and that no longer existed. So I've created a new one with all the step Bs that we have. And when we added the complete form I-9, we automatically got this condition. So let me copy this and put it here. I don't know if it will get pasted. It should just put it that way. Okay, so that would be the default entry condition that Workday delivers. Now let's add the next series of steps, which is your tasks. So go to the related actions, business process, edit definition. The plus sign. We have 3 different tasks. And since we tried yesterday that personal information change, home contact, and legal name change are not defined as of type action, they're defined as of type tasks. And the last one was the review document, so we'll add that. Not HCM for all of these. Now, since we're using task and review documents, we need to have additional action taken on it. So the first thing yesterday we did on the review document, so let's get that sorted out. So you click on the configure documents, click OK, put the announce the effective date. Then you put the document here. You can create your own document, but since we're in the test setup, you can just pick any document from the active document list. Let's say you could have instructional text. You can have signature options also, as we discussed yesterday. And you can add more documents as well. So we only have 3 errors left. We had 4 earlier. We are done with this. Let's go to the task. Now, whenever you have a task, you have to go to that particular step related actions, go to the business process, and you will have the very first option. It says configure step tasks. Now here you can add multiple steps at once, or you can do one at a time. But there's a defined list. You can only use that. You can add no other task in this. So if you click on this, you get these 5 options. So you can either do all of them in one step, or you can add multiple steps for these. So I would prefer to have all of them in one. That will add less steps in our overall business process. The employee, irrespective of this, will still get 3 different inbox items, right? And put it as personal information. So all these personal information options are not given as type action, but are given as type tasks. So this one now says personal information, which is on set. So practically, we don't need the other 2 right now because we managed our requirement in just one step. But in your setup, I leave that to you if you want to do extra tasks or you want to separate them out. We still have these 2 steps here, which we have not configured yet. So in our design, we have these 3 tasks. So I added all of them in one. So that's why it's showing the error for the other 2. So we can remove them safely. So then we'll again go to the related actions, this process, edit definition. We don't have any errors now. It's just alerts. And then we have these 2 steps, which is state and benefit election. So let's enter those as well. Of course, let's check if we have, I'm sure benefit elections is there, but voting elections, we actually have 4. These will be of type action. Not defined which security group is going to take action. The rest. Okay, so now what we designed here is all complete, and these are also of type action. So This setup is complete. Now let's just observe a few things here. So we added these different steps. Some of them comes with its own Workday owned entry conditions like this one, even for benefit elections and also for veteran status. These one, federal withholding elections and veteran status are saying that they are only specific to the US based on this condition. Change benefit election checks if there is an effect on employee benefits, which means if it's a new hire, then yes, there are no benefits for them. But if it's a rehire, then in that case, it will not trigger. So these are few observations. Now, what we'll do is we have this edit government IDs, and I only want that a particular region should be doing this. So we can create our own entry conditions also. Go to the related actions, business process, maintain step conditions. Okay. Now let's say you only want this for full-time employees, not for any part-time employees. So if the condition rule exists, you can use that. A time type should be full-time. Let's say I use this, which is an existing condition. And I want it for a specific region, which it would be, let's say, for Boston only. Pay group rule is basically defined on your pay components, but what it is, they have not named this group correctly. It's evaluating your work country to Netherlands only. And that's why I suspected. They see this is a very good example of not naming your condition rules correctly. This has nothing to do with pay groups. This is straight your work country is Netherlands. That is what this rule is. Anyway, so since it solves our purpose, so we'll use it. So we have two conditions now. One is pay group Netherlands, and the other one is time type is full time. And one thing you observe at a particular step, which is any step other than step A. Okay, this is a step B. I'm using a condition, and this is an entry condition. Now, once I click OK, you would see these two conditions. Now, the only way this particular step will trigger if the employee is in Netherlands and is a full-time employee. Both has to be true. Then only edit government IDs will trigger for them. For everybody else who's going through this process, they'll skip this because either they're not in Netherlands or not full-time or neither of these. So both of these condition has to be true. They work in an and logic. So please always remember that entry conditions, if it's only one, then it's easy, right? If it's true, then only it will trigger. That's why if you go back to your notes for business process, you have this note, entry condition must be true. Now, so likewise, you can add it on any step that you want, even on the steps that has these. You can add another entry condition that you have created. But please remember that both have to be true for this to work. Now, coming to what the question that we have, can we put entry conditions at step A? Yes, we can. But those are called as your validation conditions. Those restrict unwanted transaction happening in your process. That's why the name validation. And in your notes, you have it written must be false. That means I'll go to the related act. So this is not every business process allows for validation condition. So I'll open, we have a higher BP, which allows for validation conditions. So I'll use the same condition, time type should be full time, as a validation condition on the higher business process. Go to the related actions. Business process, maintain step conditions. Here, it's not an entry condition, it's a validation condition. this here. Now, how this will work is if you are hiring an employee and that employee is a full-time employee, the system will throw an error. So these warnings critical and warning, if you put it on warning, then it's just an alert. But if you put it on critical, the system will throw an error. And you see the validation here. It says time type should be full-time critical. So I did not create a new rule. I just used an existing one and put it in locations where we need it. So entry conditions, if I look at the onboarding process, this has to be true for this step to get executed. But in case of invalidation condition, if this is true, then the system will throw an error because validation conditions does not allow unnecessary transactions. So it's restricting any full-time hire in this case. So when this condition is false, let's say we have more steps in this process, then only this condition, if this condition is false, then only the next steps will be triggered. Let me see if time off have any, because time off is again a good example of that. As you can see, there is a validation condition which says bereavement time off is greater than 40 credits. So let's say there is a type of time off which is bereavement time off, and if the unit is greater than 40. Now how this will work is, if in any case this becomes true, the system will throw an error. As long as the bereavement time off value any user has requested less than 40 credits, that makes this condition false. Then only the next two steps will be triggered. So we have the logic of validation and entry condition in a same process. You can use a condition as an entry condition or as a validation condition depending upon what your requirement is. But please remember, not every business process allows validation conditions, and you don't need to remember which process does. Onboarding is one such example which does not allow validation conditions because it's primarily used as a sub-process to another process, which is called as onboarding setup. So it does not allow for that. So when you are talking about integrations, first of all, you need to define what type of integration. If it's an EIB, that business process in the backend. And in that case, it's just straight up data loads, pulling information or sending information somewhere else. So in that case, these entry conditions and validation conditions does play a role. But even if they're not created, an integration consultant must be capable enough to create those as and when needed. Because these are not like big things. These are very easy things to do. So that's about entry condition and validation conditions. Now we are still getting one error, and that you'll only receive in onboarding business process. That's another reason we pick it up, is there's something called as step completion. It says must occur after the completion step. Okay. Now you would see that here somewhere on the right, there's a column in the end which says complete. Now, what does this mean? So I'll explain that by going to any profile here and looking at their worker history. So by default, the last step in the process, if we don't mark any step midway as complete, okay, the last step is understood as your completion step. That once this step is finished, that marks the completion of the overall process. Okay, now what does that completion means is this thing, successfully completed. So every transaction, so first of all, every business process transaction is recorded in your worker history, right? So even if I look at Right? So you can see here the status is called successfully completed. This means that this particular process was marked as complete. But on the other hand, you would see some transactions in progress also, like this one. This means this is not yet complete. Now, when we talk about onboarding specifically, there is an inbuilt system validation which says the benefit steps should always come after your completion step. So we have the benefit step here as step D, and we still have a few more steps here, right? So what we do is we mark our step B, all these step B as complete. What I do with that is we go to the related actions, business process, set as completion. Now let me do it first and then I'll explain how does it make a difference. First of all, our error is gone. And when doing that, now you can see here in the completion step, they are marked as yes. Now, what does this mean? This means anytime an employer finishes all step Bs, it will mark the overall process as successfully completed, even though we have a series of steps to be done later on. Now, how that benefits us is we mark these four as the critical ones that, we need this information on the very first day, right? So once we have that information, we mark it as complete so that we can inform the cross-functional teams like the payroll team or the asset management team or the facilities team that this employee is in office, like they already would know, but additional information that, send them the welcome kit. For payroll, it's very important that we let them know that the benefit elections, not the benefit, their banking information is already in the system. So that is the benefit of using or marking a step as complete. Because we cannot guarantee, the employee will finish their benefit elections on the very first day, or will mark this, update their veteran or disability or withholding tax elections on the very first day. But we want all this information at the earliest. So as and when we have it, because there are dependencies on it, you need the banking information. Let's say if the employee is a mid-hire in the US, every first week, like every 15 days, you have a payroll cycle running. So you need that information. And once you have it, then you can set notifications, which we'll do in a minute. And that notification will depend on the successfully completed status. And you can apply completion at any particular step, not a problem. But if you don't apply, then the last step is your completion. But onboarding is an exception where it explicitly mentions that benefit step should always come after the completion. So even if you put it in the end, you will still get that error. So you necessarily have to mark a step as completion in your onboard. And sometimes the naming of these tasks, the work they deliver task gets a little overwhelming. So there's something called as step label override, which allows you to change that. So how does that work? You go to the related actions, business process, everything is in this business process option. Maintain step label override. So the end user, the new hire will look at this. They won't see this, they'll actually see this. All right. The next thing that we have is there's a due date column which does not make any sense. I think they should just remove it. All right, let's talk about notifications now. Now, based on the number of steps that we have, you can see the system. There are two types of notification. The system notification, which based on the type of steps we have, they get automatically updated. And the other one is custom notification, which we as consultants can add. So as you can see, review documents, tasks. So so this is Workday added. I did not add it. I just added the steps, and whichever had a default notification, Workday adds it here. So this seems like the benefit steps, all the other I-9 forms, they don't have any notifications. So let's say I want a notification on the managed payment election that as soon as this step is completed, the payroll team must be notified. So I'll set up a custom notification by going to the related actions and go to business process and add notification, the very first option that you see here. Click OK. Now we can skip the part above, not mandatory. This is what is most important. When are we triggering that notification? So let's say in our example, we want it to be as soon as the employee finishes managed payment elections, we need a notification to be triggered. So we want it on the exit of a particular step. This is on entry of a step. This is on exit of a particular step. This is on the overall status of the process. That's why you see completed. This means successfully completed or corrected, denied. These all are transactions on the overall process. And these would be specific to a particular step. So let's say on exit, we want it on the banking information. Right? So you go here and then whoever group in the recipient section, whoever would receive the notification, you will add them here. Let's say you have a payroll group. Let's say payroll administrators or payroll auditors. They need to receive these. So that is how they get these notifications. And even if someone is outside of the payroll team or not assigned to any of these groups, you can have them added here. Let's say it's John Smith at Civilian Law. Let's say John is a external vendor and who partner with us on our payroll thing. So we can add that person here. So they'll also receive a notification. Okay, so recipient section, you can add groups. Recipients will be like role-based securities, like we had a recruiter. So whoever the respective recruiter for that particular employee was, they'll get that. And it always goes out as an email as well. So you can send it on a home address also. But by default, it always goes to their work email. And then there's nothing, all there is your content of what you want to send information about. Now here, and this worker is now terminated. Or you can, this is like the subject. So it has to be like on a highlight, it says termination completed. Just give me a second. So you put it as termination completed. And then in the body, you can add more details that this worker, now you cannot be creating separate notifications for each worker. That's why you have this field option. So one at a particular row, you can only either add a text or a field. These fields are your dynamic fields. So next I'll use an actual worker. So let's say whoever you are being is in termination, whoever the subject is, it will come as this worker and the name of that worker. And then I put comma, is now terminated. Please process the necessary. So you have set a subject line, you have entered a body. Obviously, you can enhance as much as there's no limitation to it. You can add links to it. Usually most of on offboarding processes, we have a lot of these notifications that goes on. We added this on onboarding. I did not realize we are putting this on an onboarding. So either way, whichever process you do. So, we need this on onboarding because, sorry, we don't need this on onboarding. 1 second. Oh, so I think the body and the subject is incorrect. It's not about termination. We wanted to let them know that they have entered the information. Please feed it in your system. So this is how we create notification, and you can create entry conditions on notification. This is how it looks like on the process. And this is how it looks like. Now, if you enter another entry condition, you will see that. These are the recipients. This is what the trigger status is, and this is what the subject and the body would look like. So you can do a lot of customization here. There's no limit to that, but you should have a general understanding of how to create a notification. So this would be different for every worker, right? Whoever has completed the onboarding, the name of that worker will be populated here. So these are your dynamic fields. So in today's session, we finished the setup of all the steps here in the business process. The next thing we did is work with entry conditions, understood the concept of, then we worked on the entry conditions and validation conditions, understood the concept of completion of business process, and then we added the notifications. So this all you need to replicate exactly the way it is. And once you're comfortable with that, then definitely try on more scenarios. Whatever creative ideas you can think of, please do apply it and let me know if you face any concerns.